last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. In Maine, Governor Paul LePage calls middle management at the state's Department of Health and Human Services, quote, about as corrupt as can be, end quote. The White House scraps child labor rules on farms aimed at preventing kids from doing certain agricultural work deemed too dangerous for children. According to new research, drug trials are ignoring children who often react differently to certain medications than adults and primarily focusing on the needs of adults when researching new medications to treat diseases. And a new survey reveals that 1 in 3 kids who play sports will get hurt. In Florida, Governor Rick Scott signs a new mandated reporter law into effect in response to the Penn State sex abuse scandal that would impose a $1 million fine onto college officials who failed to report sexual abuse of a child on campus or at college-sponsored events. In Arizona, CPS agents are taking so many kids that they have no more places to put them as more and more foster parents leave due to the agency's lack of assistance with the kids. A group in Oklahoma is heading up a foster parent recruitment campaign in an effort to get kids out of children's shelters. And in Tennessee, a Republican state representative says that parents should be blamed for teen suicides and not bullying. In Wisconsin, a new law increases public accountability in regards to children who are injured while under the watchful eye of the child protective industry. Even though the different counties have no unified standards on child abuse investigations, in Oregon, a new audit says that CPS agents aren't doing enough to return foster kids home to their parents. And of course, CPS agents are blaming high caseloads and limited resources instead of their own incompetence for this problem. In Michigan, a House committee approved stricter guidelines for CPS agents to snatch kids after an 11-year-old testifies about being snatched unnecessarily when his father mistakenly gave him a Mike's Hard Lemonade at a Detroit Tigers baseball game without knowing that it was an alcoholic beverage. In Arkansas, the state is cutting the budget for child abuse prevention programs by $2.2 million. And in Washington, D.C., even though CPS agents are snatching significantly fewer kids into foster care these days, their budget hasn't decreased by 1 penny. In Taiwan this week, a woman who was adopted to the USA 50 years ago returns to meet her real mother. In Denmark, a couple of foster parents are sentenced to 2 years in jail for abusing 9 kids between 1990 and 2010. And in New Zealand, a cop who shelved dozens of child abuse files gets to keep his job after an internal investigation. Norwegian child protective industry returns 2 kids who were snatched in a cultural dispute to India to live with their uncle. In South Africa, a woman is arrested for helping a mom rig a paternity test. And a South African mother has her 3-week-old baby returned to her after she was snatched by a woman who recently miscarried her own child. In Australia this week, a foster father and his son are accused of sexually abusing a female foster child. In Canada, false accusations of child abuse against teachers are on the rise, while a substitute teacher who is cleared of child abuse accusations is suggesting that parents and students should be held accountable for making false accusations. In Ottawa, the First Nations groups win a court victory for better funding of their child welfare agencies. And in Alberta, child protective officials are denying any wrongdoing after snatching a kid from a family and holding him in foster care for 2 years after his stepbrother's accidental death was wrongfully classified as a homicide. In England, Haringey Council is engulfed into another failure to protect scandal as 10 lice-ridden children are taken into care after suffering appalling abuse while under the watchful eye of British social workers for 10 years. A new report claims that British child abuse laws are out of date because they fail to recognize all forms of emotional neglect. A British social worker gets busted for drunk driving, and a British child abuse survivor is speaking out after years of torment by her adoptive father. A new study suggests testing 5-year-olds in the UK after finding that half of these kids aren't ready for kindergarten because of sedentary lifestyles. A British couple who was cleared of murder after their son died from rickets, which was misinterpreted as shaken baby syndrome, and had their daughter taken away in the process, is calling for a probe into how the child protective industry handles such cases. Another British couple is prevented from seeing their kids unsupervised for 7 months after taking him to the hospital over a concern about a little bump on the head. And British parents are being accused of helping their preteens set up dangerous accounts on the pedophile-infested social networking website known as Facebook. In entertainment news this week, the Octomom is being investigated for neglect after spending hundreds of dollars on a haircut. In Maryland, a real mother is arrested after taking taking a kitchen knife to her 8-month-old baby during a supervised visit at a social service office while screaming, "If I can't have her, nobody can." In California, a Sacramento County CPS agent who lost her foster care license for abusing the kids in her care is allowed to keep her job as a child abuse investigator. In Michigan, a real father is acquitted of murder charges in what they were calling a shaken baby incident. And in South Carolina, a man gets 4 years in jail after threatening the life of a family court judge on Facebook. In New Jersey, a father plants a digital recorder onto his special needs son and records verbal abuse and insults from teachers and staff. In Oregon, police are looking for a 14-year-old who ran away from her foster home and CPS agents. In New York, an 11-year-old girl goes to court after making a false statement about her parent menacing her with a handgun. And a Bronx couple and 3 foster kids die in a fire. In Pennsylvania, a man who was adopted finds himself on a missing children's website and ended up solving his own case. An Iowa man is arrested for shooting at a social worker. And finally, tonight, a woman from Wisconsin is crying foul after getting pregnant by a CPS agent who was supposed to be helping her, and he gets custody of the kid. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.